It was elections day. I was running for the Democratic Party and had everything under control. I was in my room when I got the news. I had won the battle and I was okay with it. I did everything perfectly and I know my fans were impressed with my speech. Later that night, I went to sleep. But I could tell something was wrong. But whatever, who cares? I had a very weird dream that night. Someone was quietly sneaking into my room and leaving a little note that will change my life forever and ever and ever and ever. I woke up the next morning very disturbed, but relieved it was over, and then I saw it. It couldn't be, it was there, staring and smiling at me. It clearly said, "Pie or die." I had to step up to the plate, so I called her, Inspector Catsup Matsin Coconut Licuado. She will do the job. I could tell she was really interested in my case and willing to find the responsible for that horrible, horrible note.
I went to the White House and I was totally prepared. I didn't quite understand what she was saying, but thank God I took notes. It was a very difficult case. There were so many factors. After a while, I guess it had something to do with the pie. Yes, that's it. The pie of the president. I had to warn him something was really, really, really wrong. I ran as fast as I could, trying to get there as soon as possible. I told her my discovery right off the bat. She was horrified by what I told her, and she said she knew who was behind all these myths.
It was cold, but I had to do it. Everything was her fault, so I discreetly left a little present. She woke up, but I think she didn't notice me. I told her it was a dream, and ha! She believed it. I followed her the next day, hoping she would give up the pie. I saw her talking to that Inspector Katsu Kapun Ka... Well, let's call her Chewbacca, because clearly she liked Star Wars. I had to stop her from telling the president what she had found out. I waited outside of the White House for about a decade. But Chewbacca never returned, or so I hoped. I decided to leave. And then I saw her. I ran towards her as fast as I could. Well, maybe it wasn't that fast because I couldn't get her. I discreetly saw them talking, and I could tell they were talking about my note. I couldn't just drop the ball. I had to act, and fast. I had to perfect my plan, or make one for that matter.
She told me everything she knew, and I couldn't believe it. She was so right. Everything was about my sweet American pie. No one would get near my pie. I had to protect it. So I hid it in my safest place. Yes, on my coffee table. No one will ever find it there. Yes, my precious. I was suspicious about someone. I remember the day of the elections, when something was kind of weird. Right there! Can you see it? Yes, just behind that creepy tourist. Yes, little Timmy was the answer. He was jealous of me because Professor Abbott liked me more, so I called National Security. I saw the cops from my window talking to little Timmy. They wanted to be sure he was the one that left the note. And yes, he was taken to jail, but because of something else, drug dealing. So my pie killer was still out there.
I returned to my home, satisfied with what I had discovered. But there was more, and I was going to get at the bottom of it. I was sleeping, and then the president called. I think she was scared, but I couldn't tell. There was a little interference. She said national security had made some questions to that creepy little Timmy, but he wasn't the one that left the note. So I decided to make some investigation of my own. Yes, it had been in front of me my whole life, and I hadn't realized. Darth Vader. I decided to go in that very moment to the White House, but it was dark and cold, and Star Wars was on TV. So I didn't. I waited, and waited, and waited until the morning came. By the time I got to the White House, it was too late. The president, my president, had gone fishing.
I planned it all night. It was perfect. I would go to the White House and just steal it. Chewbacca would never bring me down. Never! I had to disguise so that anyone could recognize me. But all disguises were a little too expensive and were only bananas and stuff like that, and I thought that would be a little suspicious, so I just wore black. When I arrived, Chewbacca was crying because the president had gone fishing or something. I barely got into the White House without being seen. And I waited her at her balcony, in part because her window was closed and I just couldn't get down. So I waited until the president arrived and opened the window. Luckily, Chewbacca fell asleep before she arrived. The president opened the window. It was my chance. I tried to run to the pipe. No one could stop me. But I just couldn't find it. It was hidden somewhere. Then, the president arrived and made it so obvious. It was on the coffee table. We both ran towards the pie, but he got it first. I cried, and then started chasing her around the coffee table. Damn, she was fast. I finally grabbed her and made her drop the pie on the floor. She was humiliated. My plan was complete. Ha ha ha! She started crying hysterically and just kept saying on, "Why, God, why?" So I laughed harder. Ha ha! She looked at me and said, "Casey, I knew it all the time."
I woke up on the White House. The president had arrived, and I ran to the president's room to tell her I had the answer. Darth Vader! I entered the room screaming. She was with another girl, and was screaming hysterically. They both looked at me, and that's when I knew it wasn't Darth Vader.
Anyways, that's when I started my story. 30 years ago, when I was happy, my parents sent me to a summer fat camp. I had everything planned. I hid my sweet American pie to eat it later behind a tree. And then she arrived and took my pie. She started laughing so hard at me. I returned to my tent. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't think. I was so depressed. I even forgot what I ate for breakfast that morning. Everything became a big blur. My life had lost its meaning. After that, everything went wrong. I tried many things, like baseball. I was so good at it, but then I struck out. Just like that weird poem. It was all her fault. I was going to make a home run, and then there she was, mocking at me. After I struck out, no one liked me. They just kept saying, "Oh, she's like the one on Casey at the bat." It followed me everywhere. So then I tried jazz, but I really wasn't good at it. My mind was on something else. Pageants. So that's when I planned an elaborate plan. Steal the president and drop it.
I let her tell her story, but then I remembered. It wasn't me, it was little Timmy. He dropped my pie too, I told her, and she just hit me and run. I never found her again. I went to thank ketchup melting con licuado for everything, but no one opened the door, so I just went fishing.
It wasn't Darth Vader. It was Casey, my second option. Someone arrived at my door, but I was a little busy. Besides, everything was okay now.
Oh, so romantic. I love Star Wars.